Okay, so if we start, and I got to play these on guitar because it makes it a little bit easier for me. One, we have the diatonic triad. So we have one, and we give numbers, right, to each one. So that's the first thing you want to do. So we have C, and I'm not going to talk about the voicings. I'm just going to, just talk about the basic chord structure and the relationship to each other. In other words, assigning numbers in different keys. So if we have the 1 chord, and we have the 2 chord, right? D minor, 3 chord is E minor, 4 chord is F, 5 chord is G, 6 chord is A minor, 7 chord is B diminished, and then back to C, right? So those are the diatonic chords in the key. So we have, well, let me get my pen here. It's going to be a little bit challenging to type and write at the same time. So I'll write this over here. So we have, right, C, then D minor I played, then E minor, then F, then G, then we had A minor, and B diminished. And you don't see that too much as a triad when you're playing. And then C, unless you're studying triads, which, by the way, there's a lot of really great studies in triads that you should go over on the internet. So anyway, we assign these all numbers. C is 1, right? 1 major, or just 1. This is 2 minor. This is 3 minor. This is 4 major. This is 5, right? This is 6. This is 7 diminished, and this is 1 again. Now they always, I just want to clarify something. When you're in the key of C, C is 1. If I'm playing the same scale, remember we talked about Aeolian mode. If I'm in A minor is 1 minor. Okay, then B diminished is 2. C is 3, right? 3 major in A minor. Everything relates back to A if you're in A minor. Everything relates back to C if you're in C minor or C major. Also, too, just to clarify, when you add different chords, like when you talk about, suppose we had just for an example, you don't have to worry about it too much yet, but I'll get into it. If you say B flat. If you say B flat, if you have a B flat chord in C, you're playing in C and you come across the B flat chord, and I think I gave the example before where you hear this a lot. The flat 7. They always relate the B flat to the C. In C major, it's B natural is the normal chord tone or diatonic note. If someone says, well, there's a B flat chord in it, then it's called flat 7. So it always relates back to the tonic note, which sometimes can get confusing. In any event, that's jumping ahead just a little bit, so let's get rid of that. Okay, so those are the diatonic notes. Now, tunes have them all in different order, right? You've heard this. So when you hear that, you hear the 1 chord, right? That's the 1, and it goes to 4 major, and then it goes to 5, and I think I came back to 4 before I went to 1, and then I went to 1. So in C, that's C, F, G, F, and then back to C. Well, what if I wanted it in G? If somebody says, well, I don't want to play it in C, I want to play it in G. Well, how many sharps are there in the key of G? There's 1 sharp, F sharp. So what's the 1 chord in G? Well, the 1 chord in G is G major. Any on the guitar, that isn't the voicing, but those are the notes. So G would be 1. The 4 chord would be C, right? The 5 chord would be D. And then we came back to C. And then we went to 1. So you should be able to transpose it to any key, especially these diatonic chords, since we're just starting. So you have, if it was in G, it would just be G, C, and C, G. Right? What if we wanted to go to E flat? Well, E flat, remember our key signatures, has 3 flats. The flats are B, E, and A. Okay? Well, what's the 1 chord? Well, E flat, right? E flat, G, and B flat. A flat is the 4 chord. B flat is the 5 chord. A flat is the 4 chord. And E flat is the 5 chord. Pretty simple stuff, right? So now you know how to change 1, 4, and 5 in every key. Just get the key signature, realize what the notes are, the major and minor chords, and those will be the ones you mostly work with diatonic chords. Don't worry too much about the 7 chord right now. But so in E flat, it's E flat, A flat, B flat, A flat. Okay, now what if we added a 6 in there? So let's say E flat minor, and then the 6 would be, or E flat major, I'm sorry, and then C minor, and then A flat, and then B flat. Oh, made it a 7th, I should have. So you have E flat down to C minor, which is 6, to A flat, which is 4, and E flat, to B flat. So there's a progression, and you'll hear that a lot. Let me get rid of a couple of these. A couple tunes came to mind there. One Maroon 5 song came to mind, and a couple other ones. But in any event, let's go to E flat here. And we said 1. I played a 1, 6, a 4, 5, 1 progression. So this was E flat, C minor. We went to 4, which is A flat, sorry, and then 5, which is B flat, and 1, which is E flat again. What if we want that in G? Well, you just do the same numbers. What's 1 in G? Remember, there's 1 sharp. It doesn't really affect it in G. So it's G, okay? The 6 is E minor. The 4 is C, the 5 is D, and the 1 is G. So if you transpose that to G, you get... And in E flat, it was... If you wanted in, I don't know, A... Sorry, I played it too. Okay. 1, 6, 4, 5, 1. So how many sharps are there in A major? Well, do you remember? 1 above the last sharp. That's why we needed that F sharp minor. Father can go. So there are 3 sharps in A major. The 1 chord is A. Okay. The 6th chord is F sharp minor. And how do we know it's minor? The 6th chord, the diatonic 6th chord in every major key is minor. The 4 chord is major D, and the 5 chord is major, and then back to 1. Pretty basic, huh? Okay, so you could do the same thing with their triads. Now we do major 7ths. I think we started in... If we do a C major 7, that's 1. The 4 is a major 7. The 5 is a 5-7. And then back to 1. So let's just add a 4-part harmony with the chords. And some of these will be... Some of them will make sense and some of them won't, but... or sound familiar, I guess I should say. So if we do it with four-part harmony, we have the 1 chord as a C major 7, and I won't put them all as notes. And then the 4 chord is F major 7. and the 5 chord is G7. And let's get that going right back to C major 7. So that's 1, 4, 5, 1. Let's play that in C. So 1, 4, 5, 1. Okay, and that 5 has that pull. You can hear that pull. It wants to go back to here, doesn't it? So 1, 4, back to 1. Okay, what if we wanted that let's do A flat. So how many flats are there in A flat? Well, B, E, A, D. Okay, we got 4 flats. Well, what's the 1 in A flat? Well, it's going to be A flat major 7. Then we went to the 4 chord. What's the 4 chord? D flat major 7. What's the 5 chord? E flat 7. And then we're back to 1, A flat major 7. So you see, it's just a matter of keeping the relationship the same and then using your key signatures, assigning numbers to each note value, knowing that the 1, 4, and 5 are major. The 1, 4, and 5 are major triads. The 1 and 4 are major 7th. The 5 is a dominant 7th. Knowing that the 2, 3, and 6 are minors, or if you harmonize it in 4-part harmony, it's their minor 7ths. The 7 chord is a diminished triad, or it's a minor 7th flat 5 if you harmonize it with 4-part harmony. But in A flat, I digressed here. So we have A flat major 7 and E7, E flat 7, and then A flat major 7. So that progression in A flat, in C, okay, if you want to do it in F, okay, so you just assign the numbers. The diatonic ones are pretty easy. Okay, so there's more than diatonic chords. Now, don't forget, there's all sorts of real common ones. You know, there's all sorts. You've all heard those. So what is that? Well, that's the 1 in B. And then goes to 5, which is F sharp in B. Then it goes to 6. Then it goes to 4. What if we wanted that in D? Well, it would be D. Then it goes to 5. Then it goes to 4. Or 6, I'm sorry. Then it goes to 4. What if we wanted an A? Then it goes to 5. Then it goes to 6, which is F sharp. Then it goes to 4. Okay? So you just got to get the diatonic notes, the diatonic chords, be able to know what they are in each key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are pretty common. And when you get into 7th chords, the minor 7th flat 5 is a pretty common one. So those are some of the diatonic things, and I think you can see how that would work. Now, we don't always use just diatonic chords, right? Which are natural to the key. Let's take a look at some other things. Now, one of the things that you have to recognize with chords is that the 1 and 5 chord have a very special relationship. And you know, they call it, in a G7, they have, the G7 has a dominant pull to it. In other words, it has the fourth degree of the scale and the seventh degree of the scale, and both of those notes are half step away from other notes in the scale. So that's why you have, when you play a G7, you have this here that wants to go to 1. Hear it? And guys who want to be, they call it tritone. Okay. And it resolves really nicely to C. So that 5-1 relationship is real powerful. And it doesn't set up anywhere else unless we actually use what's called secondary dominance. So this G7 is called the dominant chord in C, which it means it's not primary purpose. It'll pull to a 1. Okay, so this is 5/7 of 1. Okay, which is if we're on C, 5 notes up from C is G7. Well, we can set up that same relationship with D. Well, what's the 2 chord in C? Well, it's D minor. Well, what's 5 notes above D? In a C scale, it's A. Well, diatonically, it's A minor. Well, how can we get that to pull if we go C, A minor, D minor, G7, C, which is kind of nice, right? C major 7, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7, C. But it has that minor quality chord, doesn't pull as strongly as this one would. You hear it? So this A7 is called a secondary dominant. It doesn't occur naturally diatonically in the key, but they take the chord, which is 5 notes above the target chord. So if we're going to D, instead of playing A minor, you'll hear a lot of people, or a lot of composers, they'll make it A7. So they'll go. So there's C, then there's A7, D minor 7. So this is 1. This is called 5/7 of 2. Instead of 5/7 of 1, since the target for G7 is 5/1, this is called 5/7 of 2. It's not A minor, it's A7. It's a dominant chord that's a fifth above the target chord. Okay, so that's 5/7 of 2. And I'm sure you've heard that. Did you ever hear of 5? So if we go, let's see if we go. So we have C, then we go to B7. Well, if it was diatonic, it would be B minor 7, and then E minor. And there are some things that do that, but what'll make it even pull better, and just for this study, it's called 5/7 of 3. So we have C, and then B7, and then E minor 7. So this is 3, right? 3 minor 7. This is 1. This is if this was B minor 7 flat 5, it would simply be 7. But it's not. The composer a lot of times will make it B7, and that is 5/7 of 3. Why? Because it's a dominant quality chord, a 7th chord. And by I mean 7th, I don't mean 4 notes. I mean the quality is dominant 7th. It's 5 notes above this. Now, that one is very common, but one that you probably heard 100 times, especially in a lot of country tunes, is 5/7 of 4. So what would that be? Well, if we're in C and we're going to F, a lot of times, which is 1 and then 4, you'll hear. Right? Goes here a lot of times, which we'll talk about. But anyway, it's if we do it in F, it's 1, and then it goes to B flat. So it's 1, F7 is 5, 7 of 4, and F, 4 is B flat. Okay. So we have 1, and the target chord is the 4 chord, and 5, 7 of 4. So they're called secondary dominants. So they're a dominant chord that is targeted 5 notes higher than the target chord. Did I say that right? So if we're in F and we want to go to B flat, a nice way to do it, if you're a composer, is to make the harmony go F1, then 5, 7 of 4. And it sets up that pool, sets up that secondary dominance. So 5, 7 of 4. You can have 5, 7 of 5. You can have 5, 7 of the dominant. So if I'm in C, so what was that? That was C, and it was D7. Well, what's D7? If it was 2, if it was D minor, it would be 2. Well, it's not. It's D7. So it's 5, 7 of 5. So you can have now. I know there's all sorts of ways to. You got to do it in every key, but we'll do it here in C first. 1, and then 5, 7 of 5 is what? Well, 5 is G7, which is the dominant chord. Well, you can have 5, 7 of 5. What's a note? What's a chord that's a dominant chord 5 notes above G7? 5 scale steps, a perfect fifth above it. However you want to think of it. Well, you just go G, A, B, C, D. Okay? G, A, B, C, D. D. Well, D minor is diatonic to the key, but it's not. We want if it's a D7. So if you see this, D7 and then G7. So this isn't a key change. It didn't temporarily go to a different key. It's just called a secondary dominant. So D, C, 5. This would be called 5, 7 of 5. This would be called 5, 7, and then it usually goes to 1. Now there's another thing they do sometimes. They call it deceptive cadence. Instead of this 5 chord going to 1, it goes somewhere else. And there's a lot of places it can go, but a lot of times when it's deceptive, kind of in a traditional sense, it goes to A minor, right? So it goes. So what you expected was, or it's resolved. But if the song goes on, goes to A minor, and then they go to 4, right? And then usually the last time. Anyway, so the 5 usually goes to 1, but sometimes it can go to 6, sometimes they make it go to 3. It can go any place, but generally the pool is to 1. If it's deceptive, it goes someplace else. The most common ones are 3 and 6. So if you're listening to it too, you can't figure out what the heck it's doing. Think about the 5, 7 going to 1, then listen for a deceptive cadence. G7 going to A minor, or G7 going to E minor. Or if you're in F, what would it be in F? Well, F, the 5, 7 would be C. Well, what would 6 be? Well, F has 1 flat. The 6th note of the scale is D minor, right? Or 6th note of the scale is D, and the 6th chord is minor. So a deceptive cadence in F would be F, C7 to D minor, then to 4 maybe, which is B flat, and the 4 is always major, and then back to 1. So you got to kind of get your key signatures in your head, and you got to get which is the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 7 in each key. What are their qualities? And then you add secondary dominance when you're listening to tunes. Which one did I miss? 5, 7 of 4, 5, 7 of 5. Well, you can have 5, 7 of 6. A minor is 6. So what's 5, 7 of 6? It's E7. And then it usually goes to 2 and then 5, 1. So So 5, 7 of 6. Sometimes they just go to 5, 7 of each. That's an old, reminds me of an old tune called 5 foot 2. But anyway, what's one that maybe comes on? All of me, can't you see? Yeah, all of me. All of me goes to 5, 7 of 6, although it doesn't resolve to 6, it resolves to 5, 7 of 2 then, and then 5, 7 of 2 goes to 5, 7 of 5. But anyway, it goes to E7. You hear that a lot. So you got 1, 5, 7 of 6 to 6 to 2 to 5 to 1. So if we're in B flat and we go, okay, well, my target chord is G minor, but it first goes to 5, 7 of that. So you got 1, 5, 7 of 6 in B flat, and then G minor, which is 6. So why is D7 5, 7 of 6? Because if we're on G and we go up 5 notes of the scale, okay, it's D7. It's D. So it's a note, it's a dominant chord, a perfect fifth away from the target chord. Those are secondary dominants. You can do 5, 7 of 7 too. So if we're in C, 7 is B, so we want an F. So you hear things like something like, or I'm sorry, that was wrong. It's F7, which is a little weird. So 5, 7 of 7 isn't, I guess there's probably a lot of musical tunes with it, but off the top of my head, I can't think of any that use that. But it's just a note that's five notes away from the 7 chord in a major key, with a dominant quality. So F sharp 7 to B minor 7 flat 5. So C to F sharp 7 to B minor 7 flat 5. So at least you know what it is. So that's the secondary dominant. Now there's a rule. There's a real common chord progression. Again, let me get into this before I go on to the next thing that you'll see here. Let's see. Let me erase this. And you'll hear a lot of jazz players more than pop players talk about it. Maybe that's not the case. They talk about a 2-5-1, which is real common. You can see lots of examples on the internet, and all they do is tell you, well, here's a D minor 7, G7, C7. So now you can do it in any key, right? D minor 7, G7, C major 7. So that's a 2-5-1 in C. Well, what's a 2-5-1 in E flat? Well, F minor 7, B flat 7, and E flat major 7. What's a 2-5-1 in F? G minor 7, C7, F major 7. So you can pick any key. In A flat, it's B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat 7. Well, so that's a real common pattern. Now you can do the same thing with secondary dominants. You can put a 2 in front of it. So a 2 chord. So let's say, for instance, you're in C, okay, and you want to go to F, and you're a composer, and you just don't want to. You want to get a different kind of a feel or a sound. So you go C, right? That sounds very deliberate then to F. So C, C7, which is 5-7 of 4, real common sound. So what a lot of composers will do, they'll put the 2 in front of it. So they put a C. They put the 2 of the 5 in front of it. G minor 7s. Okay. So they put the 2 chord of the 5 in front of it. So if we're in C and we want to get to F, and you hear something, you don't quite know what it is, you hear this secondary dominant, but there's something before it. A lot of times it's the 2 chord of the 5. So what does that mean? Well, the 5 chord, the secondary dominant is C. Okay. So what is the related? The related to is actually what they call it. Okay. The related to of C7. Well, the easy way to figure it out is to go 5 notes above the C and make it a minor. That's how you get the related to. I mean, you could relate it back to the key of F, but it's just easier. It always follows kind of the cycle of fifths, that the way chords move. So you can put a 2 minor in front of every secondary dominant, and you'll hear that a lot. And the reason is not to tell you that you can analyze that, but when you hear it, if it sounds a little different, you'll recognize it. So you have C7, well, you can put G minor in front of it before you go to the 4. Same with G7. If you like, diatonically in C, it's just D minor 7, G7, C. Well, that's easy. Well, what if I had a C goes to the 5/7 of 2, going to 2, going to 5, to 1. I could go to C. I could put the 2 in front of it and make it a little bit more color. So instead of just I could go I put the 2 in front of it, which is E minor 7. Now, when you analyze this, okay, you have, this is how they actually analyze. They go 1, they'll call this C major 7 for 4 beats. You'll see this a lot. And then they go to 5/7 of what we say 2. So that would be A7, and then we go to D minor 7 for 4 beats here, for 2 beats, and then G7 for 2 beats, and then C. Okay. So what a lot of composers will do is they'll put a 2 chord in front of this 5/7 of 2. So let's see if we get the eraser here. So instead of this, they'll do A7, which is 5/7 of 2, and they usually put an arrow like that. And then they put a 2, an E minor, oops, I'm sorry. Let me erase that. They'll call this, they'll put an E minor 7 chord in there. And you'll hear that a lot. And this is the related to, this is called the related to of 5/7 of 2. Now it has a dual functionality. It's also 3 minor. But if you listen to the harmonic rhythm, this really doesn't sound like the 3 chord, because the 3 and the 1 are pretty much interchangeable, especially like if you're playing on the first measure. But when it comes on the second measure and it goes to a secondary dominant, the harmonic rhythm doesn't say that it's functioning as a 3 chord. It says it's functioning as the related to of this chord. Just like this is the related to of this chord, and this is 1. So, I mean, it's kind of a subtle thing, and it's not that important, but know that a lot of folks would analyze it as the related to of 5/7 of 2 rather than 1, 3, 5/7 of 2. It really doesn't make any difference, but just so you know the distinction. So those are secondary dominants. Secondary dominants are the dominant chord, 5 notes above any target chord that's in the diatonic vocabulary of chords. And just to review, we have the 1 major 7, the 2 minor 7, the 3 minor 7, the 4 major 7, the 5 7, the 6 minor 7, the 7 minor 7, flat 5, and then the 1. Any chord that is 5 notes above it with a dominant quality is considered its secondary dominant. And that's how you analyze it. So again, the easiest one to remember, the one you probably heard the most, is C, and then C7, and then to F. Okay, so this C7 is 5/7, the secondary dominant of the 4 chord. Okay, you can have the secondary dominant of the 5 chord, which would be G7. You can have the secondary dominant of the 6 chord, which would be E7. Okay, so you can have secondary dominants. Obviously, I'm doing it in C for simplicity's sakes, but in any chord, if something starts in F, here's a, remember this one? Old Ray Charles tune, right? And then it goes there. Well, it starts on with 1, then it goes to 5/7, and then it goes to 6 chord. Okay, so this is called 5/7 of 6. Now, some players, they'll play it like this. They'll put the related 2 in front of it. So there's all sorts of ways to substitute chords in and make it sound, give it a little bit more color, make it more complex. Sometimes you don't want to change it too much because it gets untasteful. But anyway, you got to analyze the tunes to the key they're in, figure out the secondary dominants. You can add the related 2s. Okay, so I guess that's the lesson for today. That's a lot. Just remember that the primary thing is just every diatonic chord can have a secondary dominant. Every secondary dominant could have the related 2 in front of it. Okay, it could also have its dominant in front of it, but that's just going through the cycle of fifths. But anyway, so get those 2 concepts under, and then next time I'll show you the substitute dominants. They call it the tritone substitution. You know, you can get some really nice lines, mostly jazz lines and chromatic lines when you substitute, use what's called a tritone substitute. Why they call it that, I don't even, I guess because this is called a tritone. Where that came from, I don't know. But it's not that difficult. So you have diatonic chords, secondary dominants, triads, major sevenths. You know how to spell them all. Get your key signatures down, and everything will fall into place. And then we'll do borrowed chords from the modes. So that's why I showed you the modes, because there's chords that come from modes, and then they borrow a chord from the mode, and then they're back into the major key. So there's a lot of things like that. I'm trying to think of some secondary. Remember this old guitar tune? I don't want to get copyright, but it starts on E flat. It's an E flat, and then it goes to B flat minor. Goes B flat minor, E7. Okay, so there's a good example. It's one of the most common guitar tunes. It starts on E flat, and it puts the related 2 of 5/7 of 4 to the 4. So, right? Here's the related to the 4. Okay? And it goes, which we'll talk about next. 4 minor to flat 7/7, which are borrowed chords. Notice it still sounds like it's in. It still sounds like it's in E flat. So those lines, the substitutions, will be able to the tritone substitution and the dominant substitutions will enable you to make some nice lines like that. So that's next. Anyway, I thought I'd give you a little taste of that. All right, away we go. That's enough for one video, that's for sure. All right. Any questions? Ask them below.